First of all, I just want to thank everyone for coming out today and to openly support an issue that for some reason is very difficult for people to acknowledge. So come on up here. To help me do this, I'd like to introduce my son, Griffin. So just in case there's any confusion about what dyspraxia looks like, this is my 9-year-old cutie patootie. He's just the sweetest little...
You're embarrassing me in front of all these people, Mom.
Okay. Sorry about that. Take it easy. Okay, you're right. This is my 9-year-old son.
Dude. I want to be called Dude or Buddy. Either of those are fine.
You're kidding me right now.
No.
Okay. I meant my 9-year-old dude.
And I have dyspraxia.
Okay. So according to the invitation, this briefing will explore what kind of information is needed about complex childhood brain disorders to help us diagnose, treat, and ultimately make a difference in the lives of patients using dyspraxia as a case study. But I am here to talk to you today about the best case scenario of dyspraxia. Griffin has been in the proper therapies with the proper treatment since age 4. This has become our village, a very expensive village not covered by insurance, complete with occupational therapists, physical therapists, behavioral therapists, educational therapists, vision therapists, chiropractors, Western doctors, holistic doctors, developmental pediatricians, and neurologists. That's just to name a few. There are many children with developmental delays and learning disabilities, but I personally like to call them neurological diversities. So we have ADD, we have ADHD, we have autism spectrum disorder, we have autism, we have sensory processing disorders, learning delays, speech and language delays, dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, and dyspraxia. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a lot of disses and isms. I could throw a bunch of statistics at you about how many children are affected with these conditions. As little as 1 in 10, as much as 1 in 5, but realistically, all you have to do is walk into a classroom to see that it's probably more than that. These children have to work extra hard at everyday things. Walking, talking, reading social cues, reading, eating, listening, sequencing movements, regulating thoughts and feelings, impulse control, anxiety, focus, organization of thoughts, movements, words, all different manifestations of neurological diversities. There are a ton of different names and classifications we give to all of these disorders, but the simple fact is that we all have areas where our brain excels and areas where it takes a lot of hard work just to make it happen. How many people in this room have a brain that works perfectly? Okay, if you're the one person sitting there actually thinking that your brain works perfectly, you most definitely have a neurological disorder. So, if everyone's brain, or everyone's got one, and no one's is perfect, why is it so hard to talk about? 2 years ago, I posted on Facebook that my 3-year-old had a cough and a low-grade fever. There were 329 comments and likes. Many people were even praying for us. Later, I posted that I was being honored at a benefit for my tireless efforts to shine a light on developmental delays and learning disabilities, and 2 comments, 3 likes. Why the huge discrepancy? It's because it's hard to look in the mirror and see your imperfections. It's even harder to look at your children and see them. And yet, it is those very same imperfections that make us who we are. It is also those very same neurological imperfections that almost always come with a superpower. For when the brain struggles, is injured, impaired in one area, another area will excel. And that's the beauty of the brain. It will find a way. Yet my son's dyspraxia brings on frustration, anger, sadness, a feeling of inequality to his neurotypical peers. I asked him, "Why are you sad that you have dyspraxia?" He responded, "I don't feel I do things as well as other kids, like writing, walking, strength." He paused, then thoughtfully continued, "Well, you know, I kind of feel like Dr. Strange. My hands aren't so good." When Griffin was 4 years old, I was told he had dyspraxia. Make no mistake, it is what he has, it is not who he is. But at that time, I was also told, don't Google it, it'll just scare you. So, of course, I turned to the most trusted and reliable source for all things medical and factual, Wikipedia. It says, it actually wasn't far off, I was kind of impressed. Dyspraxia is a chronic neurological disorder beginning in childhood that can affect planning of movements and coordination as a result of brain messages not being accurately transmitted to the body. In addition to the physical impairments, is it associated with problems with memory, especially working memory. This typically results in difficulty remembering instructions, difficulty organizing one's time and remembering deadlines, increased propensity to lose things and problems carrying out tasks which require remembering several steps in a sequence such as cooking. They often have difficulty moderating the amount of sensory information that their body is constantly sending them, so as a result, dyspraxic are prone to sensory overload and anxiety. Still, I Googled more. There were lots of scary phrases: chronic neurological disorder, lifelong impairment, can't be cured. Then I find hope. A picture of Harry Potter, the boy who lived, and he has dyspraxia. So I thought, Daniel Radcliffe can hit his mark, say his lines, and swish his wand. We're going to be okay. But let me tell you what dyspraxia looks like in real life for a 4-year-old trying to eat a meal. People, eating requires a lot of thought and strength. First, you need to sit upright in a chair, and you need to hold a utensil. Okay, now in which hand? It's hard to tell when you have dyspraxia because you use both of them. I mean, when one tires, you simply switch to the other. And now you have to get the food on the fork or spoon and get it into your mouth. Hopefully it's a good day and you have the proprioceptive sense to get it into your mouth and not your cheek or your eye. And now you have to chew it. Now you have to swallow it. And then there's the conversation. Everybody wants to talk about their day while they're eating. You can't concentrate. You spill. At 4, Griffin requested yogurt at every single meal. I finally said, "My goodness, you really like yogurt." He said, "Not really. It's just easier to eat." He did say that.
Wow.
Yeah. See, at 4, he knew he was different, even at 4. Okay, now let's cover what that can look like for a first grader. In an educational setting where there is no awareness or diagnosis of dyspraxia, the teacher calls on you to pay attention because you have your head on your desk or in your hand like this.
That is what I do.
It is what he does. It's not because he's lazy, but it's because he's exhausted and he continuously has to fight low muscle tone and consciously think to sit upright while concentrating on what the teacher is droning on and on about. And little Timmy sitting next to you is tapping his foot and Susie's humming quietly. Now, to prove a point and refocus you, the teacher now asks you a question to something you really do know the answer to, but you have poor short-term memory. It takes 30 seconds to access long-term memory. So while you start to search your long-term memory for the answer that you know, the teacher becomes displeased with your lack of response and starts in at you. Did you hear me? Did you hear me? What's the answer? I mean, we went over this yesterday. What's the answer? Now the answer that you most certainly know is lost in a cacophony of noise, anxiety, and embarrassment. When you have dyspraxia, you have trouble sequencing and organizing. I want to talk about this for a second. That doesn't just mean knowing to put your underwear on before your pants, although it does mean that.
I do that all the time, though.
Yes, you do. It means it's hard to fill in the gaps in life. Puzzle pieces that you can't see. Griffin and I were watching The Greatest Showman the other day. It showed Hugh Jackman as a little boy. It showed that he and his father were poor. They had holes in their shoes. It showed that they both worked and were treated terribly by their boss. The next scene shows that the father is sick in bed and the young boy tends to him, giving him sips of water. Then it cuts to the boy standing over the father's casket holding flowers. I said, Griffin, that is so sad that his dad died. He looked at me with surprise and exclaimed, his dad died? See, that piece of the puzzle, it wasn't shown. It was missing. It was out of sequence. Yet, because of his dyspraxia, the areas of his brain that are challenged, the area of his brains that are not challenged are awesome. The movie continued. There's a scene where Hugh Jackman watches in awe as his latest talent discovery performs a beautiful song. As the audience starts to cheer, she gives him a quick glance like this. It's literally this quick. She just goes. Griffin pops up out of the couch and says, oh no, is he going to ruin his life and have an affair with that woman? I'm telling you, my husband watched that scene 4 times and it just completely went over his head. Okay, and therein lies his superpower. My son is so kind, so loving, so creative, so outside of the box with his ideas and with his strategies. He's an emotional empath with a stellar sense of humor and a heart of gold. And it is difficult for him to comprehend that his neurotypical peers must learn these behaviors. I want to go on record saying that Griffin is thriving in a public education setting because we had an early diagnosis, proper treatment, and therapies. And I was able to work closely with his teachers to educate them on dyspraxia. And I fought like a mad dog to get him an IEP, an independent education program. Okay, let me define IEP. It means they are required by law to make accommodations for Griffin to access his education on an equal level to his peers. Now let me define mad dog. It means I went to battle. I had to fight for an assessment. I would not take no for an answer. I had to hire an advocate. I turned a 1-hour meeting into a 5-hour lesson, and I was not leaving that room until my son got a fair shake at his education. But they didn't want to do it because it wasn't on the list. My son's medically diagnosed disability was not on their list. Now, it is a disability that encompasses almost every other health impairment on their list, but it was not referred to by name. He looked like every neurotypical peer, and he was not a behavioral risk. After 5 hours, I think they came to realize that I was becoming a behavioral risk and agreed to give Griffin the classroom accommodations to ensure his success and learning. And now he's crushing it. So every new year in school brings on the same conversation with a new teacher and a new meeting to explain dyspraxia. Multiple meetings. But I always start with this. I believe that every child wants to do their best, wants to please you. And if they are not thriving, something is amiss. Our teacher this year, Miss Yee, I want to give a shout out to her because she is awesome.
Awesome.
Yes. She said to me, I applied the techniques, the patience, the visual aids, the repetition that I use for Griffin with my entire class, and I am amazed at how it is helping all of them to thrive. I could see her excitement, the thrill of uncovering this diamond in the rough. These strategies have proven that all kids have gifts. They just open them at different times and in different ways. The other day I had an interesting thought. Happens about twice a year. This one was a good one. Did you know that psychiatrists and therapists used to refer to their subjects as patients? And if your parents knew someone who was seeking treatment, well, that person was just not right in the head. There was an element of shame attached. Today, when someone is in therapy, they are getting healthy. It is admirable that they seek the skills to live a fuller, happier life. They are no longer patients. They are clients. These kids are not patients. They are clients. And the correct treatments are in many cases overriding their disses and isms. Every educational, occupational, physical, behavioral, speech, and language therapy session is riddled with challenges that turn into victories right before your eyes. I've witnessed them. I've seen it. And I'm here to celebrate them. Now, inevitably, at the end of today, I will post to my over 1 million total followers that I have talked to, shared with, sought out people of importance, people in power, people who can make a change for the better in the life of my son, my superhero, my Griffin. I'm betting we get a lot of likes and shares because there's a whole lot of brains out there and every single one of them works differently. I want to be clear. I'm not emotionally moved because I'm sad. I'm moved because I'm proud and I am fortunate. I am lucky. I am blessed to be the mother of a boy who will know what it is like to seek help and advocate for his struggles. And with his strengths, lead a movement to celebrate all of our unique human ways of learning, growing, thinking, writing, walking, talking, loving, being. Griffin.
Yeah?
You are like Dr. Strange.
Okay.
His hands do not work well, but he is enlightened far beyond the realms of the galaxy.
Yeah, he's a superhero.
He is.